Good morning, Year 3, and welcome to your first English lesson. Now, before you've watched this video, you should have watched the video where it's reading the first 3 chapters of The Hodgehog. If you haven't listened to that part yet, you need to stop this video and go and watch the first video first, because otherwise this work won't make sense. Okay? So if you have listened to it, let's continue. So today we're going to be looking at settings, okay? And we're going to be thinking about exploring a story setting. We're going to be discussing your understanding of the book. We're going to be exploring how a setting is described in our text today. And we're going to improve our description of a setting, and you're going to use a checklist to help you. Okay. So in the first 3 chapters, okay, you've read that now. Did you enjoy it? It was quite good, wasn't it? I really do enjoy this book. It is one of my favourite books. Now, we're going to be thinking about understanding the chapters. Okay, so I have some questions. Now, they are on your sheet as well, but I'm going to put them up here. And I'm going to read each question for you, and then we're going to pause the video, and I want you to work on answering those questions. So question 1, what information does the reader find out in the opening line? How is the information linked to the problem that needs to be solved in the book? Can you name the characters that are introduced in the first 3 chapters? And what time of day does Max slip out of his garden? On page 13, Max considers returning home, but what stops him? Number 6, what vehicle hits Max? Number 7, how does Max feel after he's been hit? And what impact does this have once he gets home? I want you to pause the video here, and I want you to have a go now at working through those questions, okay? Welcome back. Hopefully you've had a go at answering all of those questions. We're going to go through the questions now and see if your answers were correct. So let's have a look. Question 1, what information does the reader find out in the opening line? Well, we find out that Aunt Bessie has been killed. Now, number 2, how is this information linked to the problem that needs to be solved? Well, Aunt Bessie had suffered a fate of many hedgehogs trying to cross a road. The problem that needs to be solved in the book is how can hedgehogs safely cross the road? Very important. So the characters that we found and the characters that we were introduced to in the first 3 chapters were Ma, Pa, Peony, Pansy and Petunia, Max's sisters, Max, the lorry driver that swerved to avoid Max, and the cyclist. That gives us a clue for another question. Now, at what time of day does Max slip out of his garden? And he left his garden at the evening rush hour. And the rush hour is the time on the evening when everybody is rushing to get home after work. So it's a very busy time. Now on page 13, Max considers returning home, but what stops him? Well, he was at the point of going home when he saw what he was looking for. He saw humans safely crossing the road at a zebra crossing, and that's what he was looking for. Now, number 6, what vehicle hits Max? Now, remember, the lorry driver, he misses Max, but it's the bicycle. Remember, Max couldn't see him and he couldn't see Max, and it was the bicycle that hit him. And how did Max feel after he'd been hit, and what impact does this have once he gets home? Remember, he had a headache after his accident, and he had that really large bump on his head, didn't he? He was also unaware of what's happening around him, because he says, I remember nothing half. when they're talking about his journey home, he's dazed, which means he's a little bit confused and he doesn't quite know what is happening. And he uses his sense of smell to get home. But all his thoughts and his words are muddled up, aren't they? Because he calls himself a hodgehog. Excellent. You did a really good job there, Year 3. Well done. Okay, now we're going to explore some settings, okay? So there are 2 settings that are described within the first 3 chapters of the book. Now, we're going to analyse, that means we're going to have a look at the way that the road setting is described in chapter 2. So I've attached chapter 2 and I want you to have a look carefully now through that chapter. I want you to look at how the road setting is presented to the reader, and I want you to note down any features that you find on this worksheet that you have. So this is your worksheet 2, and I want you to now jot down any ideas that you see from your chapter 2, okay? Pause the video here and I want you to do that work now. Welcome back. How did you get on? Brilliant. Okay, let's have a look. What did you find out about the street setting that's described in chapter 2? Well, let's talk about first the descriptions of what can be seen. So what can be seen are cars and motorbikes, buses and lorries and their lights, street lamps, glaring lights, humans, shadows, rows of shops, pavements and road, tall checkered pole with a flowering orange globe on the top and striped lines on the road. Did you get most of those? Fabulous. Then let's have a look at the description of what can be heard. There was a sea of noise, traffic thundering past, a din, and a din is another word for a noise, a loud noise, and noisy monsters. Do you think that the noisy monsters possibly could have been the cars? Maybe. A description of what can be felt. So he could feel that the cars were terrifyingly close to him. And remember, he was very confused and dazzled by those lights. And he had a hammering heart because he felt very frightened. He was feeling very scared, wasn't he? And he was very cautious. Do you remember he started to walk out onto the road and then he quickly ran back and stood up against the wall. He was quite cautious. Now let's have a look at the adjectives to describe the atmosphere, so how it was feeling. The atmosphere of a noisy, busy street with lights glaring is created through the adjectives to describe some of the things within the setting. For example, brightly lit and noisy. Now, the time of day, well, we knew that Max left at rush hour, which was in the evening, wasn't it? Now, other words that we can describe the evening is dusk. Dusk is when the sun is just going down. So in the morning, when the sun is coming up, at the very beginning, it's called dawn. And when the sun is going down, that's dusk. And like I said, we knew it was in the evening time and it was rush hour, the time of night when everybody is rushing to get home from work or school. Was there any descriptions of weather? There wasn't, was there? They didn't talk about whether it was hot or cold, or whether it was dark, or whether it was snowy or raining. They didn't discuss that. Now, how did the sentence vary in length and type? Well, the sentence varied in length and they started in different ways. And some questions are also included to show Max's point of view. Now, as a writer, when we're writing sentences for readers, it's really important to start our sentences in different ways. And later on, we're going to be really focusing on that when we start to write our setting description. Now, we're going to have a little go of improving a description of a setting now. So here is a made-up description of the garden at number 5A. And we're going to use a little checklist to evaluate it and see how it could be improved. So I'm going to read it to you now. It was cold. The hedgehogs were huddled together in the flower bed of the garden of number 5A. Max looked around him. The flowers around him were beautiful. There were dahlias and roses. He felt happy to be with his family, but he shivered with the cold. He felt the earth beneath his paws were damp. Do you think that could be improved? We could add some more things into there, couldn't we? Should we have a look at our checklist to see what we could add in? Okay, first of all, does this description, does it describe what can be seen? Yes, it does. Does it describe what can be heard? No, it doesn't, does it? Does it describe what can be felt? We had feelings, so we talked about that how he felt happy, and we also had sensory feelings because he felt the damp earth underneath his paws. Was there adjectives to describe atmosphere like there was before? Do you remember about the lights being dazzling? No, there was none of that this time. Did it describe the time of day? No. But did it describe the weather? Yes, it did, because it said he was cold, didn't it? Did he use different types of sentences? Yeah, the sentences were quite small and sometimes they started with the same word. So that could definitely be improved. When we're thinking about your writing, I want you to start thinking about different ways to start your sentence. It's really important to engage your reader as a writer to do that. Okay, now this is your turn to do your work. So I want you to start thinking about writing an effective story description. And you're going to start by improving a piece of writing. Now you've got your activity sheet and on there there's a piece of writing and I'm going to show your activity now. Okay, here we go. Right, so you have a checklist. So does your improved description of your setting, can you describe what's been seen, describe what's been heard, describe what's been felt, describe the atmosphere, describe the time of day, describe the weather, and use different sentence types. Now you also have a word bank here that's going to help you. Now what I've done is already got most of the setting there written out for you and you're going to add in the words as needed. So you're going to use the checklist to help you and you're going to rewrite the following description so it's improved. So remember, this is a made-up setting and we're pretending that the hedgehog had an adventure into the forest. So this isn't based on the book, this is a different type of description. So within this, I want you to now read through this description, use the word bank to help you, and make sure that you have used the checklist there. I really look forward to seeing your work, Year 3. Enjoy!